Hello, my name is Rex and I am a dead man walking, and I just want to share with you some of my story in the hope that it might be a help either to you or to someone else, to encourage them that you're not alone in this journey, if it's yours or someone else's, and that there is hope beyond what you can see right now. And in my last clip I shared with you about the surgery that they did on me in that emergency situation, and today I'm going to share about my hospital stay and my initial recovery in hospital up to the point that I was discharged and sent home. I was feeling very sore at that point on that first day, despite the intravenous pain medications and the local anaesthetic deep inside the wound even, and everything that was still being dispensed. But I guess I thought to myself, well, at least I can rest. So I was a bit traumatised, but I could just rest. Well, blow me down, it seemed like only minutes before some cruel individual came in and told me, you have to get out of bed and stand up. And I never realised before quite how much we depend on our stomach muscles for the most basic movement, even trying to sit up or to turn or to stand up from a sitting position. I was clueless. And this guy, they were making me stand up, and they said it was very important for the healing that I stand up straight away, and that there is no time that the wound gets to kind of set where it is. You have to keep things, get things into the ability to stand up and to move and so forth. Well, that hurt, I have to say. It was not fun. I felt like my belly had been slashed by one of Caesar's swordsmen, and yeah. But anyway, I did it. There was one of the staff there had a really neat way of describing how to get out of bed. So you'd get your feet off the edge of the bed and get the bed down to a height where your feet were touching the ground, and she called it nose over toes and up she goes. In other words, lean forwards until your nose is vertically above your toes, and then just keep leaning forward a little bit more, and then push and upwards, keeping your weight forward so that you don't just fall back. Man, that was agony doing that, but it was a fantastic tip in how to manage getting out of bed when it felt impossible. Yeah, one of the things I hadn't understood before, there's so much stuff you learn, I guess, when you're in hospital, was the importance of what they call laying down the rails of pain relief. I didn't understand how things worked, and I wasn't requesting some pain relief at times that I needed to. What I needed to be doing was to be asking for paracetamol, or that's what we call it in New Zealand, but I think it's in other countries they might refer to it as acetaminophen, painkillers, and every 4 hours, up to a maximum of 4 times a day, lay that down, and don't allow the pain to develop further before you put it down. It provides a really good baseline on which your other pain medications support and work better. It's a lot harder to get pain back under control once it's escalated than if you keep the painkillers in there, so that the pain just doesn't get to escalate in that way in the first place. And so at first I wasn't so clued up about that, but once I was on a schedule for that, then things got better. And for me, I found that about 6 in the morning, 11 in the morning, about 4 in the afternoon, and then about 9 p.m, so around about 5 hours apart, was a good time to keep that baseline of pain medication going, laying down those rails up to the maximum of 4 doses per day. I did have at night time, when you have surgery, one of the things they do is they poke a little tube down to help you breathe and so forth. I assume that's what it's for. But as they do that, of course, we've got a very sensitive throat lining, and I think a lot of people end up with a little bit of damage there, and indeed I had something like that. And at night, it sometimes got to the point where I thought I was going to die, that I couldn't breathe, and that I'd sort of want to cough, which was extraordinarily painful at the time to try and cough with that massive great wound. But after a couple of nights, somebody said to me, "Hey, look, we'll just give you we'd call it a popsicle. It's a little, it's a ice block, like a fruit ice block or something." And wow, being able to bite off a little bit of that off the stick and let it sit in my throat and melt was a very soothing solution to help my throat that was really struggling with sort of catching and making me feel like I couldn't breathe. So over the next few days, the physiotherapists, of course, came in and rightly wanted me to be getting up and getting moving, and they were setting goals for me, like walking around the ward and trying to get so many meters each day. Initially just a few steps, but trying to move it up to 30, 40, 50 meters, and then right around the whole ward. I found that very difficult. I'm sure that must be one of the hardest parts for people in their recovery, is the pain and the effort and the dripping with sweat from the pain and the effort as you do those things. And I was a bit grotty on one occasion when I had a physiotherapist who hadn't done it with me before, and they managed to get themselves hooked up on all my, because you had to take all your painkillers and all the oxygen and all the things that were going through your body on the stand, wheel it around with you. And this guy perhaps wasn't inclined so much towards that mechanical side of things, and he ended up kind of getting wrapped up and then tripping a bit and yanking on the stuff. And I was mortified by this and feeling very vulnerable. And I actually was quite grotty, and I asked them not to have him work with me again, which perhaps wasn't the nicest thing to do. I felt vulnerable, and I hope that it didn't offend him or knock his confidence too much, because I certainly appreciate what they did. It was very, very good, and it must be pretty hard when people are really struggling to do what they need to do, and you're trying to help them. So the surgeon visited and gave a report on what had been done. He emphasised that when they went in, they had to go through an extraordinary amount of fat. I was considerably overweight. I think I would have been around 135 kilograms, 270 roughly pounds, and on top of that, of course, having to slice through all that and get things out. Of course, my stomach would have been inflated like a balloon, because I had several days worth of eating that had gone in on top of the complete obstruction of my bowel. So the poor guy, he had done an amazing job. It must have been an incredibly unpleasant thing to do. I marvel at how he did it and how they managed to do these things. But I'm very thankful that he did. His report on everything was that they'd cut down in that V shape. They'd taken out not only the cancer and not only a section of the bowel, but also other things around that area from inside my body, including some lymph nodes, to test whether the cancer had spread to the lymph nodes, which later we found indeed it had. And maybe he could tell at the time, I think, that it had spread to some, but he didn't know how far. But he was positive about the outcome, and he felt that, he said he was positive, that he felt like he couldn't see any signs that it had gone further than what he'd cut out. And so that was encouraging. And then the last couple of days in hospital, I was moved from the single ward, which I'd been given, which was a real blessing in itself, especially for a newbie like me, into a shared ward with 3 or 4 other people. And that was a bit different. I was still quite distressed. I probably don't realise fully how distressed I was at that stage. I had anxiety about the pain medication and just about being able to manage. And then in that other ward, I came across a gentleman who was much worse off than me. He had had a terrible thing where he'd had a similar thing in his stomach, but it had become infected and he'd ended up in toxic shock, I think. He'd had horrific surgery and they brought him back. And when this guy's son came to visit, he said to his son, "Oh, look, it's been weeks and you haven't visited me." He must have been referring to before the actual event that had just happened. And his son said to him, I was going to this weekend. And something in me just really felt for him in particular, but also for his son, that, when we don't, so it's so easy in our lives not to prioritise things that matter so much. We're busy, and sometimes we let that busyness take over things, and then it can hurt a lot more if we don't get a chance later to do the thing that we would have otherwise done. And so I felt for them. It spoke to me, something in that interaction, and I could just feel the hurt in it. That guy had a Bible next to his bed, and he was in a pretty bad way, and so I had the privilege of just going. I went over and grabbed his Bible and just read him some scriptures of comfort from Psalms, and that was really good. And then so after a little bit, they told me they were going to discharge me out to home, and to be honest, I don't think I felt ready to leave the hospital at that stage. I was concerned particularly about pain management, and they said to me, I'm pretty sure they said to me at that time that, hey, we'll send you home with some powerful painkillers, I think oxycodone, and that it'll be under control and you'll be all right. But just before leaving, when I actually was discharged, not long before that, I was told that no, we won't give you those more powerful pain meds, and so it was just I was left with paracetamol and codeine as my options, and so I was quite anxious about that. As it turned out, I was okay with that. I managed just fine. It's amazing with things that we're anxious about, isn't it? How sometimes so much of what we're anxious about never transpires, and we waste a lot of energy on our anxiety, and probably in that anxiety also we sometimes treat people in a way that we don't want to treat people, or we are short and snappy or something, and it's really not good. So off I went. I left the hospital and I went home, and so that was the hospital stay and the initial part of the recovery. And next time I'll probably share with you a little about the at-home recovery and the convalescing time.